PharmaPhobic is powered by Achieve the Lifestyle, a company dedicated to helping you empower your health, redefine your lifestyle, and all for the health of it. You're listening to PharmaPhobic, where we challenge the state of health in America. I'm Janie, a physician assistant, and I've seen how healthcare keeps people dependent instead of truly healthy.
And I'm Dan, a veteran turned fitness pro here to uncover the truth and explore simple and sustainable health solutions. From big pharma to big food, we're exposing the conflicts of interest keeping us sick and finding better ways to take back our health.
No fluff, no gimmicks, just real talk, real solutions, and a little bit of fun along the way.
Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of PharmaPhobic, where we help you achieve the strongest, healthiest, and most capable version of yourself. Brought to you by
Achieve the Lifestyle.
Thank you, Janie. This is my lovely wife, Janie.
And this is my ever so handsome husband, Dan.
Everybody knows who we are by now. This is episode 300.
Block of the blue on your scalp?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's where it looks better. This is cooler when the glasses are on your head and not on your face. Okay. Now I'm ready for business.
Here we
It's like
go.
a transformation.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? It's like, boom. So,
All right, so what are we going to talk about today?
today we are going to talk about the relationship between depression and nutrition. Now, we just did an episode on ADHD and nutrition. So we're going to go into the depression and nutrition one. Now, this is a sensitive topic. This is a big topic because depression is one of those things that affects a lot of people. And it seems to be an ever-growing part of the population that is affected by depression. Everybody is going to experience symptoms of depression at some point or another in their life.
True.
That doesn't mean that they're necessarily what they would call clinically depressed, but you are going to experience these lows. So we're going to talk specifically about the relationship between clinical depression, so chronic people that are constantly depressed, and nutritional status. Now, let's throw out some environmentals here. What we're about to say doesn't mean that changing your nutrition is going to solve your depression problem. The studies that we're going to point to say that. It doesn't mean that you're depressed because you're eating a certain kind of way, although there's a huge correlation and influence there. There's plenty of reasons why people would end up in depression. Obviously, the first one being traumatic experiences or traumatic events in life. Then we're going to talk about some other ones like concussion syndrome and CTE type stuff. Then obviously there's some hormonal stuff there that could present thyroid stuff and things like that that could make you experience chronic symptoms of depression, but it doesn't mean that you're what they would call clinically depressed.
Yeah, I think it's always safe to say that if somebody's clinically depressed, it's multifactorial.
It's multifactorial. Yep. So what we want to get at today before we jump into this is we're always looking to move the needle in your favor when it comes to long-term health. So we want to look at something that could help you manage, deal with, get you on the road to feeling better, right? That same thing with ADHD. The studies don't say, and hey, asterisk, I always have to say this on the studies, we got to look at who's funding. It's a grain of salt type of thing, but it's a good signal in a direction for us to start moving. But the same thing with ADHD, it doesn't mean that this is what's causing ADHD, but it says it can help you a lot to manage ADHD. Same thing is going to apply with depression, right?
One thing when I've worked with people who have depression or come to me because they're concerned about depression, and I've personally dealt with this, is I always like using metaphors. And one thing I equate it to is when you're feeling, whether it's anxious or depressed, if you feel like you're treading water, like you're just trying not to drown, right? Because it is exhausting, especially if you're what I call like you're functionally depressed, where you feel depressed, but you're going through your job, you're getting everything done, you're taking care of everything. It's exhausting. And what I always try to help with patients or clients or anybody, is to give them things to help become a little bit of like a life preserver, like a flotation device, and get it so you're still in the water. You're still going to have to swim to shore, do the work, heal, go to therapy, things like that. But what can I give you to help you make that easier? And a lot of times people just think medications only, whereas we're here to say what you eat, who you're around, how you move your body, how you sleep, all these things can be tools to help get you to where you need to be and to more sound mental health.
Yep. To me, this is obviously everybody knows somebody who's experiencing depression, or everybody, we said, everybody's going to experience the symptoms of depression at one point or another. But being a veteran, coming from that community, and being in the military, it's very common. It's, I have an interesting timeline in the military where I kind of came up under the time where, you don't talk about it and everybody pretends it doesn't exist. So for me, a lot of the time it was, man, this dude's being soft, depression, repression, like that sort of thing where you're just denying it and bottling it up. And then by the end of my tenure, like 2015, around that time, then the mental health conversation got way bigger, and the military was actually looking into better resources to deal with this. Now, another thing that happens in the veteran community is suicide. I mean, probably it's one of the demographics with the highest suicide rates in the country, only beat out by one demographic, which I'm not going to talk about right now because that has socio-political implications, but there's only one demographic that beats out veterans for suicide rates. I'll tell you later, but it's if you know, okay? So veterans, and when the COVID hit, the veteran suicide rate went even higher. Yeah. It skyrocketed. So I think suicide rates in general did. So to me, this topic of depression, it's like, okay, I really want to get at this because it's just so common in the community and in people in the active military and stuff. I feel like this is something that we need to touch. Now, getting into it. So the first thing I pulled up here is a study from the University College of London. Okay. Now let me read the title of the study so that people can pull it up if they feel so inclined.
I looked at?
Here I am with my phone in my hand, so people can pull this up. Title, it's an umbrella review. So an umbrella review means that it is a review of systematic reviews. So they took a bunch of studies, and this is similar to like a meta-analysis type of thing where it's a study of multiple studies, okay, that have been amassed over the years. So,
do you have the title? I have it.
Yeah, the title is The Serotonin Theory of Depression, a systemic umbrella review of the evidence. Okay, so
that's not the one about nutrition, though.
No, I'm not there yet. I'm gonna set. We're setting the environmentals. We're setting the tone here, guys. I'm getting your mind right for what we're about to talk to. So, the serotonin theory of depression. What do you know about this, Janie? For the longest, I guess we've been operating under the impression that oh God, that was gonna rhyme so bad. The impression that depression.
Boom, bars.
So that the impression has been that depression is based on a lack of serotonin.
A chemical imbalance in the brain.
So this review is basically saying that there is no convincing evidence of the relationship between depression and serotonin. Okay. Now,
the chemical imbalance theory doesn't hold.
The chemical imbalance theory does not hold when looking at all these studies on depression. Okay. Now, this is a European study. I obviously tend to, in that regard, when I see that it comes from Europe and I look at the funding and stuff, it tends to look a little better. Not that I'm partial to Europe, like I always say, we team America around here, but when I see it, I'm just a little bit more like, it's a little bit less corrupted of a system. I got to give them that. So anyway, let's talk about what serotonin is first. So I put it down here. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter that regulates mood, sleep, and digestion. And it's mostly found in
your gut,
Boom, boom, boom. So here we're setting a little relationship, okay,
Yeah.
between it's serotonin, makes you feel good, mood, it's found in your gut, okay? Neurotransmitters are basically chemicals that allow neurons to communicate with each other. So the neurotransmitters are like that brain and body relationship. That's how the information is transmitted. Other neurotransmitters are dopamine. What else do we have? Epinephrine?
Norepinephrine, excuse me.
Yep. So there's like 7 acetylcholine is another one.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like 7 neurotransmitters. That's a fun rabbit hole to deep dive. But today we're going to focus on serotonin because this study's saying that serotonin, the chemical imbalance equation of depression, holds no water. Now, what do we people think about with serotonin and depression?
That there's a lack of serotonin, therefore causing you to be depressed. And common medications used for depression are SSRIs, selected serotonin reuptake inhibitors, meaning that they prevent the body from reuptaking the serotonin. Therefore, there's more that's just readily available to be utilized.
Mm-hmm. Very common. I mean, those things have been in use for a long time, and they're super common prescription. What are some names of SSRIs?
So SSRIs are going to be fluoxetine, which is Prozac, sertraline, which is Zoloft, escitalopram, which is Lexapro, and citalopram, which is Celexa.
And what's Paxil?
Paxil is paroxetine, I think. Yeah.
Is that an SSRI as well? Or is that
fluoxetine, paroxetine. Yeah.
Okay. So I had somebody tell me an anecdote about Paxil, and it was very, very telling.
What is it?
Type A personality, Wall Street type, making a lot of money, going through a divorce, counselor for the couple convinces him that he should jump on this Paxil stuff. Happy dude, lives a great life even though he's getting a divorce. And he tells me that he starts having suicidal ideations.
Yep.
Immediately.
Yeah, it's more, the SSRIs can cause suicidal ideations. It's seen more in teens and young adults, but it can happen with anybody. It's like I always say, if a positive thing can happen in the brain, if a medication can cause a positive thing, it can also cause a negative thing because it's just, everything's possible. And so everyone reacts differently to medications. There's still, as this study points out, a lot we do not know about SSRIs because Nick Davenport, when we had him on in an earlier episode, mentioned this. And I've looked into this, and a lot of the medications for depression came to be because of a very first medication that was used for depression, which was a medication for tuberculosis, because everything is tuberculosis. Mm-hmm. I read that book. But this physician realized that when he put patients on a certain medication, their moods got better. So then he's like, well, I'm just going to give this medication for people who don't have, we don't know how it affects the mood, but we know people's moods are better. Same thing with ADHD drugs. They really don't know how it works, but they know that people focus better when they're on it. And so these medications, SSRIs, and there's also SNRIs, and then other medications classes, but we don't fully understand the mechanism of action. We think we do, but now studies are showing that serotonin relationship with depression is not holding up. And they think that it's more that the SSRIs allow for neuroplasticity to occur, mm-hmm. which that helps with depression. But there's not a lot of studies into that. That's just a theory.
So this anecdote, I was talking to him about this very study, and he's like, immediately he's like, don't fuck around with this and that. And he tells me this anecdote. It's here, he's an older guy. He's one of my clients. And he was probably in his 40s when this mm-hmm. happened to him. But he said, he's like, you know me. You know how I am. I'm like, nothing really bothers me. I do great. I'm type A. I like to work, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I immediately, suicidal ideations. He doesn't drink. Also because his mother was an alcoholic, so he doesn't touch alcohol. Mm-hmm. And he's like, within 24 hours, I was like suicidal ideation. I had a panic attack, massive panic attack that he said he was driving, he had to pull over. He's like, what the hell's going on? Calling his doc. And then he's like, fuck this, I'm off the stuff. Like called his doctor, and the doctor's like, no, you can't come off it like that, blah, blah, blah. He's like, no, I'm done. And then he's back to normal.
Paxil's not used commonly as a first line. I think because it has a higher side effect profile. It's most commonly used for menopausal symptoms like hot flashes, disrupted sleep, night sweats. I don't know the mechanism of action of how it helps with that, but I know that that's, if we just, look at the protocols, that's what's recommended. Some people have great relief with SSRIs and some people don't. So I think it goes back to, we don't know the correct mechanism of action. And so is it helping some people? Great. But how? We don't know.
Yeah.
But I think it's always important, and I have had this conversation time and time again with patients. Anyone coming and wants to go on an SSRI or another medication for depression or anxiety, I highly, highly advise concurrent therapy with that, or doing something, go to a therapist. Maybe that's not for everybody. I recommend books that can help. Like one great book for anxiety is, I read it and then Steve sent it to you.
Unfuck Your Brain?
Yep. Unfuck Your Brain. Yes. That's a great, great book. It's very easy to read. It has a bit of a humorous spin to it. There's other books that you can read, more self-help type things that I think are just, there's a lot of resources out there to help with your mood. That medication alone is not the answer. We need to do these other things. Going back to my analogy, treading water. Medications, that life preserver ring or whatever they have on boats. I can't remember what it's called, but it's that ring. So then now you can stay afloat and you can swim to shore easier, but you still have to do the work. And it's therapy. Also, a lot of lifestyle changes that need to happen, which
a lot of people, that's where people get bogged up, because it's like you absolutely have to change your lifestyle as well. Again, the Huberman better living through chemistry still requires better living. Like if you're going to sit there and wait for the pill to solve everything, it's just not going to happen. You know what I mean? So we always need to talk about environmentals, and that's probably the biggest hurdle to overcome. I've always, I think you asked me one time, like, how do you know so many of these medications? I'm like, well, as a company commander in the United States Army, you have to manage risk and assess risk on every single soldier under your command, especially the years that I was in, 2014, when I was doing that very specific job. This was down in Fort Hood. Fort Hood had a lot of suicides. They had mass shooters, 2 of them. Everybody remembers a terrorist attack from Major Nassim or Nassan, whatever the hell his name was, rotting in jail. Good for him. And then they had another one, which I was there for that one, where, in the fort, they had to lock down the fort when this guy basically turned his weapon on his command, shot everybody up in the CP and then killed himself. It was a very big deal. So they had us all like, hey, you need to assess every soldier that comes in. And, they had these little categories that you assess people in. Social media presence was one of them. Relationships was one of them. Like, now I'm looking back at it. Back then I was like, oh my God, more work. But now, and I had that mindset of anxiety. This dude's just being soft. But now that I know better, I'm looking back at it, I'm like, you know what? Army was kind of doing all right on that one. The physical limitations, like if they were on profile, they were injured, they were more likely to be more depressed. What medications were they on? That's where I started learning, because we had to get a list from, the PAs and the medical people. Be like, hey, so-and-so's on this, and that. And then be like, oh, that's not a good so we're assessing risk that way. And if you know anything about the military, and the VA, they'll throw the kitchen sink at you. You'll be on Klonopin, which is a benzo, SSRIs, freaking Percocets at the same time. It's wild. The pill hopped up on Mountain Dew that they do to people. I hope, I've been out, I'm going on 10 years that I'm out. I hope it's changed. Somehow I doubt it, but I hope that it's changed somewhat for the better. And they're not as permissive with the prescriptions as they used to be.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And so I want to spend more time on the study about nutrition and depression, but to kind of bridge over to that, I think to wrap up, do you have anything else to say about this study?
Yeah. So the environmentals, I said it was an umbrella review, a review of we got sidetracked there.
Yeah.
My bad, people. That's how we do because we deep dive here.
Well, I know
anyway.
you're just going to go in on the next one, so I want to give.
Yeah. So the limitations, obviously, of a review is that it's limited by the studies, right?
The quality of the studies.
The quality of the studies. So these are like the things that you have to consider when you take this as a grain of salt. So if somebody messed up those studies, and this is a study of the studies, then what their conclusion could be limited in that regard, and they acknowledge that in their study. Now, what they found, the big one that they found, is that actually chronic use of SSRIs did the opposite of what they say they're doing, which is it actually reduced the production of serotonin. It made it worse. Mm-hmm. Whereas if I understand you correctly, it's meant to free up serotonin, right?
Right.
So that your brain can use it. So this thing, the chronic use of them, made it worse. So that's where they concluded that we have to revisit this theory of chemical imbalance and the relationship between lack of serotonin and depression.
Right.
Okay, that's the first study.
So going back to that book, The Body Keeps Score, he's a psychiatrist, and he starts it off with, there was great innovations in therapy coming out, and then Prozac came out, and that kind of caught fire. Oh, a medication to help with people. And so evidence into therapy, neuroplasticity, things like that, studies into those decreased. More studies went into medications. Obviously not the mechanism of action, but just how can we get prove that these medications work so we can then do more. And so I think to sort of wrap this up and bridge it to the next study, we're not saying that SSRIs or other medications for depression aren't needed. We're just saying that we don't fully understand how they work. But if you're on one and you find it helpful and it allows you to be able to improve other parts of your lifestyle and to be an active participant in therapy, because some people are so depressed, they go to therapy, they can't even get out of themselves to participate in it. Same thing with anxiety. Some people are so bogged with anxiety and minds racing, they can't participate in therapy. So this can also facilitate going to therapy and it being more effective. So we're not saying to stop the medication or anything like that if you find it helpful. But what we're saying is that it does not work the way that we are all thought or told that it worked. And so it may be worth looking at other ways to help, one of it being neuroplasticity. Now, I read into how do you improve neuroplasticity? Basically, by all the pillars that Achieve the Lifestyle is founded on.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Improving your diet, getting regular movement, having good, efficient, quality sleep, managing your stress. I'm blanking on the other one. Great social connections. Okay.
And exposure to the outdoors.
Exposure to the outdoors. Yes. Now,
because you're not going to sit here and deny the vitamin D part of this.
And also neuroplasticity is the physical activity is being involved in novel activities. So
learning something new.
Yes. So that's one thing that I don't know if I mentioned on it here before. I think I have. But getting into jiu-jitsu has done wonders for my mental health, but also I appreciate the neuroplasticity things. And I dabbled a little bit with neuroplasticity before that because I had heard it. Like brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand is one way to encourage neuroplasticity. When I was working out with my friend Shannon back in the CrossFit days, we would do rope climbs starting with our non-dominant hand for the first one to pull, which is really hard. When we did the adult wrestling class with Coach Caldwell, for warm-ups, he would make us do cartwheels both ways. And that... Yeah,
one side is always...
One side, I'm like... like landing, like I feel like I'm Simone Biles, and then the next side I'm like, but the more you do it, the more fluid it becomes, and it's really cool to think that your brain's doing it. Now I do that with jiu-jitsu. Anytime we drill a move, there's going to be one side that like, boom, it clicks on, and then I do the other side, and it's like really hard and just not good, but I still try to do that. The other thing is something like martial arts. And they talk about, I just think of that, Will Ferrell and Zoolander, you do martial arts. But, anyway, sorry. But the martial arts, and they talk about it in the Body Keeps Score, requires you to be present. And you can't overthink. You can't be thinking about, and Kelly said this when she was on here, you can't think about like, oh, did I put the chicken out to defrost for dinner when you're in mid-roll? So it requires you to be present and active in that moment, which does great for neuroplasticity, does great for your mental health. And me personally, I've always sought activity as a way to improve my mental health. I was on Prozac COVID. I started on it during COVID. So either 2019, the end of that, or maybe it was the beginning of 2020 is when I started on it. I can't really remember, but I remember I was in therapy. I was working through something that was challenging. And then here comes COVID, and my job was in question because it's like they're closing down all the other businesses. People are told to be home. We're not having patients come in. And so it's like they did at the practices that they laid off. What did they called it? Furloughs. A lot of people. And so I'm like, why? So I'm like currently if you're in therapy and you're working through something challenging, like your anxiety and stress and everything's heightened for a short amount of time. It's good because you're working through it, but it is heightened. So I'm there, COVID hits, my job is in question. We're in New York State, so the fear mongering with COVID was a very real thing.
Don't get me started.
Yeah. And then we're having to be isolated, right? Gyms are closed. So that outlet I had always sought is now being challenged, but I still worked out at home because you're not going to make me stop working out. But so I started on Prozac, fluoxetine, and very low dose. My physician was like, you're going to have to go up. And I'm like, I'm just going to stay here because I had a feeling what was going to happen. And it happened because I started it the very next day. I'm like, this is amazing. I feel great. This medication's working. 100% placebo effect. Those medications take a good 2 to 4 to 6 weeks to build up their effects so you feel the benefits. I said first day after, like, I feel great. I was logically aware that this was a placebo effect. I did not care because for the first time in my life, I was like, oh, something took the load off. I have arm floaties. I can now swim easier, going back to that analogy. And so I used that to feel better, to, be more of a participant in my therapy, to get through that hard time in therapy as well. Also to handle the shit show that was COVID in New York State. And then I stayed on it probably longer than I should have because then I started to develop side effects. Like I felt really indifferent. Like I just didn't care anymore. And to me, indifference is one of the most insulting things. Like if I said, hey, Dan, what do you want to do for our anniversary? And he's like, I don't care.
That is, I literally tell people that one of the most dangerous mindsets is the I don't give an F mindset.
Yeah.
When you're like, when you say I don't give a fuck,
yeah.
You say that, that's like that. When you say, hey, what about your relationship? I don't give a fuck. That you're in a bad place. Hey, your job, they're doing this. I don't give a fuck. You're in a bad place.
Now, so, if anybody who knows me, like maybe I care too much about stuff. I overthink stuff. So for a period of time, that was great to not to care overly, to overthink. But it got to a point where it went past neutral. And I remember I was watching, like Dan knows anytime like I'm reading an article, if you watch like a Hallmark movie or I'm get a little teared up at the end of it, like it hits the feels. I didn't have that anymore. I'm just like, And it wasn't the sad stuff. It's also, I didn't feel really happy either. Mm-hmm. Like, if it was like a friend's birthday, I wasn't like, yay, happy birthday. It was kind of like, happy birthday, And so I came off of it. Now I was able to come off of it because we moved to Florida. I mean, I'm sure I would be able to come off of it. We stayed in New York, but it happened that we also made radical lifestyle changes.
Yeah, down here.
Yeah. So Florida, more sunshine. Okay.
And then we got purposeful
more time outside.
Being outside more. Yep.
Yes. More time in nature because we're walking on the beach. Yes, we were in nature in upstate New York, 100%. We also drastically changed our diet, and that's how I want to bridge it over to the other one, because we made a choice to we cannonballed into that, but we cut out seed oils and processed foods. And that made a huge difference. I didn't have to taper off the fluoxetine because I stayed at the lowest dose possible. If you're on higher doses, you have to taper off. But fluoxetine's long acting, so it takes about a week or more for it to completely wash out of your system. And it was just great. But I do remember coming off of it, I had a rebound panic attack one weekend, I remember. And it was just like, but anyway, I have been able to remain off of it. My mood's not perfect. We all have our ups and downs, but I would say that our lifestyle and my years of therapy have really put me in a position where I have the tools to when the depression symptoms start to come in, because like Dan mentioned, everyone's going to experience them at some point in your life. Some people are probably more set up than others to fall into depressive feelings more, but I've been able to go through life because I really put time and money into my lifestyle instead of putting time and money into paying for a medication and remembering to take it every day. I focus more on what's the quality of my sleep? How's our relationship? The relationships I choose to have with other people. What's my activity look like? What's the quality of my food? Am I spending time in nature outdoors? Am I sequestering myself? Am I, isolating, not being around anybody? And so I think that goes into the next study about the relationship between nutrition and depression. And now let's take a quick break. Have you heard about collagen and how amazing it is for your skin, hair, nails, digestion, and joints, but have no clue which one to choose? I've been there. A few years ago, I stumbled upon Bubs Naturals, and let me tell you, I've been hooked ever since. Here's why I swear by them. Bubs Naturals keeps their quality standards sky high from the start to finish. Their collagen blends perfectly in coffee, or really any other beverage you love. Plus, they've got convenient to-go packs so you can stay on track wherever life takes you. And it doesn't stop there. They'll donate 10% of all of their proceeds to charities that support veterans. How awesome is that? Oh, and they've leveled up their electrolytes too. The mixed berry, that's my absolute favorite. It's light, refreshing, and not overly sweet. What sealed the deal for me? Their electrolytes are NSF certified, made right here in the USA, and just like their collagen, every purchase helps give back. So do your body a favor, head to bubnaturals.com and use my code JANE20 at checkout for 20% off every time you order. Tired of looking like you lost a fight with a powdered donut every time you work out? Yeah, I was too. That's why I ditched the messy chalk and switched to Chalkless. Chalkless is a new, clean, residue-free grip enhancer that goes on in seconds and lasts for hours. No clouds, no cleanup, just a rock-solid grip. Whether you're crushing it in the gym, dominating on the pickleball court, or hanging on a rock face like Spider-Man, Chalkless has your back. I even hit my 350-pound deadlift PR at Summer Strong using Chalkless. Locked in, zero slip, total confidence. Ready to level up your grip game? Head over to chalkless.com and use code JANEBROWN to snag 10% off your order.
Well, before we get there, I guess the whole thing here is that if you think that you're just going to pull this one lever, I'm going to go to the doctor and I'm going to get the pill, baby, and I'm done, and that's the only thing I got to do. Like, if you think you're just going to pull this one lever and it's going to give you everything you need and turn your life into this, that ain't it, Chief. That's not it. There's other work to be done to really help this thing along, right? And we here at the PharmaPhobic podcast, we like to try to help people live a pharma-free life. So we want to give you all the other tools that could help you. And hey, if you need the pharmacological intervention, yeah, go for it. But make sure you do all this stuff too, so that you can really come up out of the hole wherever it may be, whether it's, depression or anxiety or ADHD or whatever it may be. You're going to need the lifestyle stuff too. Okay, that's what we want to get at. Now, before we get into the nutrition one, we got to follow the money, baby. We got to follow the money on this stuff. So what's the market value of antidepressants, right?
Oh gosh, I don't know, but
so yeah, depression, anxiety, cancer, they all come with a price tag on it. Hence, we don't really focus on solving them. Every research is driven on how do we medicate this, right?
So one thing I know, and we've mentioned it before, there's now more than ever more drugs for depression, but depression rates still keep climbing,
skyrocketing.
right? What have the rates of suicide done with introduction of antidepressants? Because in theory, you would think, oh, if we have more antidepressants, we're reaching more people with depression, suicide rates should go down.
Suicide rates keep going up. That's another thing. That's one of those things that you don't really see a taper off. You just see keep going up and up and up.
And I understand many different reasons why. I'm just
So the amount of people on antidepressants, the estimates of the U.S. population that could be, they're saying 13.2% of the population. You're looking at about 17 million people that are on some form of antidepressant.
Is that counting people who that's just on antidepressants, not for what reason why?
Just people that are
Because the studies that we referenced today excluded people with bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, other psychiatric disorders other than major depressive disorder.
Yeah. This is just periphery. Like you could Google this and get a quick answer. So about 13% is what the consensus seems to be. So about 17 million people. The market value, how much revenue do antidepressants bring? $17 billion a year. The projection by 2030 is going to be up to $36 billion a year. Okay. So you're looking at it doubling in the next few years. That's what they're projecting.
That's what they're hoping.
I mean, hey, not if PharmaPhobic has anything to say about it. I'm about to ruin your wallet, bro. If we're putting this message out, we're going to ruin, I'm in your pockets like I'm the government. Anyway, 17 billion is a nice chunk of change. And to double it in the next couple of years to about 36, it's a little bit more than double. That's a nice chunk of change. Yeah. And keep in mind, guys, when we talk about pharma, it's just one product. This is one line of products that is bringing in that kind of money. Yeah. Forget about the whole line of other stuff that they have, like the chemotherapies, like, now they're killing it with the GLPs and stuff. So just think about that, okay? Now, keep that in mind. The money's out there. There's plenty of money to be made in slanging antidepressants. Now let's talk about the connection between diet and depression. So the study we pulled up here, association between dietary habits and depression, a systematic review, another one.
DJ
Khaled, yes.
Another one.
So things that they pointed out from this systematic review, there's a strong connection that they observed in older people between malnourishment and depression. So older people that are not eating enough and all that other stuff tend to be depressed.
Yep.
Or that they're not getting enough nutrients. There tends to be a big, strong connection there. Makes me think about people with eating disorders as well. There's usually an accompanied feeling there when people are not, anorexic or that sort of thing, or bulimic, they're not getting enough nutrients. It goes hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
So
older people with depression is more prevalent, and the malnutrition with the older population is in and of itself multifactorial, because you have the fact that at a certain age, people stop absorbing nutrients as well. They stop digesting protein efficiently. They don't get as much nutrients, which is why, branched chain amino acids, protein powders, just as much exposure to protein in older population is crucial.
Now, my question is that a mechanism, or is that a result of lifestyle and this is the culmination, or is that a result of age necessarily? Like,
I think it's a result of ages as we get, because like with children, like you can get a 12-year-old or younger and they can have like half a hamburger and their muscle protein synthesis like use every single bit of that up. And then you and I eat a full hamburger and maybe use like 60% of that, right? So it's just the optimization of I think digestion's a huge role, but other things as well.
Yeah, but is our gut microbiome suffering as we
Probably.
age? And we're like, by the time you hit old age, it's compromised to a
Yes.
point where,
And I
whereas
think-
if you were, out in the wild, not exposed to a bunch of bullshit, you weren't eating a bunch of crappy food for years and years and years, your microbiome would be healthier. You'd be able
So
your
I
muscle
think that there is a natural decline. I think it's accelerated by the standard
modern
American
lifestyle.
diet. Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
Yes.
Because I could see, I've heard older people not being able to tolerate as much carbohydrate.
Right.
And then that's when like ketogenic approaches and that sort of thing seem to hold better for older people. Still, protein has to remain high.
Yes.
But I don't know the whole muscle protein synthesis thing. It's a little bit more compromised.
So it's more compromised. The natural sarcopenia is going to happen, accelerated for people who are inactive. So their metabolism is downregulated because of that. They have less of an appetite, so they're intaking less overall.
Yep.
And also older people, unfortunately, they tend to lose their social network, right? Yep. So whether it's a spouse or friends, I've had so many patients who now don't cook at home or make food for themselves because they've never made food for themselves. They've always made it for a family or for somebody else.
That happened. That's typical Hispanic grandma.
Yes. So now they don't eat because they're not making food. They don't
have people to cook for, so they don't make food anymore. And now, we're living with that in my family with my grandmother.
And also they lose their social connections. A lot of their friends are passing away. So now they just feel a little bit more depressed, and now they don't move as much. Some people who are depressed, they lose their appetite. Some people eat their feelings. Some people just don't eat at all. And so there's a lot of things in that with the older population. And I was just thinking about this morning when I was eating breakfast. I'm like, what if we took some of the money that went into all medications and used that to build up a great support system for our older population?
Yeah. And the people that you see thriving in older age, they have something they work on all the time, which back to the neuroplasticity thing, skill-based hobbies. We've talked about this before. That's part of the equation if you want to live a high quality life. The guys the fishing, the golf, the freaking hunting, the whatever it may be, just having pickleball is a freaking thing now,
Yeah.
So that is part of the equation. You have to be working on something. And the older people that are always working, I play canasta, or I play bridge, I golf, I go to bingo. This sort of thing keeps them engaged, and it keeps them really sharp for a long time.
Yeah. So for the older population, depression rates are high. Yes, because of nutrition, but also a bunch of other things, which will come around to impact nutrition. Yeah. And so, go ahead.
Parentheses there. You remember the old wisdom of, you've done working out. You got the 30-minute window to get protein in because else you're going to go catabolic. Turns out that wasn't necessarily accurate for people that have good muscle protein synthesis, i.e. you're in some kind of shape. It just matters the totality of protein that you intake through the day. So if you're well fed, well nourished, it doesn't really matter. You don't have to be pounding a protein shake as soon as you go down because you're going to be eating your muscle.
Yeah.
However, it applies to older people because their muscle protein synthesis, meaning the uptake of protein for them is lower, so they need more exposure to protein, not less. So for them, they should be eating. They finish working out. They should be taking protein.
So the branched chain amino acids, the collagen, the protein shakes, things like that, just to get, because their appetite's not going to be great. So all these easy exposures to protein are beneficial for them. Now, one thing I did not like about this study is that one of the recommendations they made to help improve mood and improve rates of depression through diet was a variety of fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, they basically very solid statement against ultra-processed foods.
Yes, ultra-processed foods, junk foods. And they said a variety of fruits and vegetables, lean meats, unprocessed carbohydrates. But they said decrease intake of red meat. Now, if you know us, you know that we don't like that.
Beef. It's what's for dinner.
Yeah. But unfortunately, a lot of these studies And a lot of studies that say red meat consumption is bad, they lump red meat with processed meat, with Dan meat. Shouldn't talk about that on this show. But
I didn't even know where you were going while you were
I
laughing.
put deli meat.
Then you said that. I was just like, Jesus, woman. This is a family-friendly show.
Okay. Deli meat. Anyway, now I'm all flustered. And canned meat. There's even one study, I don't know if it was in this one, but red meat, lasagna classified as red meat.
Yeah, lasagna, a lot of these studies, what they call meat and they call red meat is they've literally lumped every ounce of garbage into it. There's another study where the vegans were throwing this one around as a thing like, you see, meat's bad for you. And then when you read into it, what they were calling meat for the study that they used, their protein source, was Boost.
Yeah.
Boost, those little ready to drink protein shakes that are full of seed oils and mystery ingredients that they give older people to give them their protein. That's what they were classifying as meat, bruh.
Yeah.
Bruh, I mean, I'll put a bottle of plastic Boost right next to you, and then I'll put a ribeye next to. Do those things even look similar? No. How do you even conflate the two? How do you do that? How? Boost doesn't even have beef isolate protein in it. What are we talking about? It's got like soy protein and maybe a little whey in it. Stop it, y'all. Just stop it. But yes, lasagna, deli meats, hot dogs, burgers from McDonald's. This is all the stuff that they'll classify as red meat. Again, this goes back to the grain of salt thing with the studies.
Right.
They're never talking about eating, I don't know, cauliflower or Brussels sprouts and a ribeye.
Yeah. But I do like because I've been looking more into the impact of diet on our gut bacteria because I've been doing more GI maps with people. And a few of our good bacteria, the good guys in there, really thrive on brightly colored fruits and vegetables. And so it just shows us how what we eat, and if we eat things that are natural of this world, there's a reason why we eat those things. And a diversity of those things help reinforce the good guys in our gut to combat the overgrowth of bad guys, which then, because serotonin is made in our gut, provides a good environment for our neurotransmitters to flourish, therefore leading to a better mood. So it has been shown if you eat all your meals through a drive-through window?
Mm-hmm. If you get your nutrition from a drive-through window.
Right. And I tell people, if you're eating, everything you eat is coming from a bag or a box, it's likely you're doing your gut no favors. So therefore it can't promote adequate amounts of neurotransmitters in the right ratios. Therefore, your mood will suffer.
Which is something, I think this is a timely conversation too. And there's a line being drawn that you can draw a connection here because gut issues are very common. And I feel like it's something that used to not be the case. And as I've gotten older, I'm seeing it more and more, allergic to this, allergic to that. People with more food allergies.
More intolerances, yeah.
More intolerances. This is becoming more common.
So something interesting that I just listened to today on a podcast of the breakdown with, I can't say her name, but the woman who played Blossom. She was also in...
listen, nobody remembers Blossom unless you're 50 years old.
No, people will remember Blossom.
Unless you're 50 years old.
Just because you grew up on an island.
I know Blossom, but I'm saying I'm old. I'm saying if you're in your 30s, you might not remember Blossom. If you're in your 20s, you definitely.
She's also in Big Bang Theory, so that expands the reach. Okay, but her podcast, they talk about gluten, so people who have bread only for breakfast, hits on our opioid receptors in our brain, so pacifies and numbs us. That's why a lot of people who struggle with depression or anxiety and things like that reach for bread or gluten-containing ingredients because it makes them feel better.
So it pacifies them?
Yeah.
Ooh, I could go down a rabbit hole right here. I'm gonna throw you guys, I need you to grab your hats real quick and go with me on this journey, okay? Put the hat on, grab that tinfoil. Supposedly, the person that came up with cornflakes, right? If you're a certain age, you know cornflakes.
The rooster?
Yeah. The person, it was some Quaker man, and he came up with this bland thing that is just carbs, no protein, because he wanted to combat sexual impropriety. So this thing basically like kills your libido to eat these cornflakes. And then they turned it into this marketing of like, this is good for you, you know, along with all the Ansel Keys stuff and whatnot. So you saying that bread only pacifies because it hits the opiate receptors and pacifies kind of ties in with this, where you're basically numbing people down, killing their libido, that sort of thing. Moreover, cults, most cults, like, yes, that kind of cult, people that are crazy, that go on suicide cults, whatever the hell, you know, cults tend to mandate for their people a freaking vegan or vegetarian diet.
More easy to control.
More easy to control. Add to that, the slaves during the Roman Empire, what were they fed?
Not meat.
Not meat, only carbs, because made them easier to control. So just think about that when you're, you know, reading some.
I wonder if, because, you know, cult leaders, they usually like sleep with a lot of people because it's like, it's my job to procreate with everybody. I wonder if they're just in the back eating steak.
Yeah, but it's no coincidence. A lot, it could be, because a lot of those cults, they start mandating these vegan diets. And there's a lot here, you know, it makes you more suggestible. It makes you more agreeable, kind of brings down that little rebellious spirit. Isn't that crazy?
But the Bible promotes eating meat. So
listen,
they're not trying to pacify.
I'm just going to throw my hands up like this. Because if you want to go in there, every time there's like, oh, this dude did this journey and he needed to be re-energized. And what they give him? Meat. I'm just saying. Honey and meat. Anyway, going back to it. So there's another thing with the older people that you tend to see a lot. And this is true of the boomers and, you know, people that are in their 60s and 70s right now, is that at some point in their life, they associated eating with being fat.
Yes.
And they associated normal eating. If you're moving your jaw and nourishing yourself, you're doing something wrong. So a lot of them only will eat one meal a day. They'll pride themselves in skipping meals. Oh, I don't eat breakfast. No, or I just had oatmeal for breakfast.
I wonder if a lot of them were a product of, this is a result of the Great Depression. Because I know my mother was not alive during the Great Depression, but her mother was. Yeah. So a lot of that patterning came down to her, where it's, you know, I think we had casseroles till I was in my teens, until my brother was like, you know, the Great Depression, we don't have to do like whatever's in the freezer, mix it with a can of cream of mushroom soup, and then that's dinner. But I mean, anyway, I'm not going to complain. We had food. So I wonder, a lot of that is patterning, is look at how little you can consume and still thrive.
There's probably a little bit in there, because these people, you know, the older people now, they were raised by people that lived through the Grand Depression.
Like that scarcity mindset of food.
There's a little bit of that. But there's also like some 1980s, 1970s dietary advice where they're basically like, no, you got to reduce your calories. You got to reduce your calories. You got to reduce your calories.
And the no fat.
And the no fat and the all that. And
then they also were part of, they were
Ansel
adults
Keys,
in the 90s for the heroin chic movement.
Heroin chic, Ansel Keys stuff, you know, no saturated fats, heart healthy oats for breakfast, heart healthy cereals for all day. Cheerios, they're great for you. That sort of thing.
And also a lot of them were probably raised status post World War II, where the meat was rationed because it was
being used for
all the soldiers.
Oh, look at that.
And so meat wasn't readily available. So you're not going to, you know, propaganda is not going to be like, you can't eat meat because it's so important that you need to give it to your soldiers. They're going to say like, hey, you can get everything you need from a box of cereal. You don't need eggs and bacon for breakfast anymore. You know, we have this. And so it's just amazing how full truths aren't told. And so then people carry on these habits that are at a deficit to their health.
Yeah. And you know, these older people, they pride themselves on not eating.
Yeah.
Like, no, I eat very healthy. Okay, so what was for breakfast? I don't eat breakfast.
Yeah.
Whoa, what about lunch? I'll just have a little. And then dinner is where they'll actually eat. I'm like, man, that's not good. That's not good. So full circle back to older people, malnourishment, connection to depression, not taking in enough nutrients, you know? And aging looks a lot different when you're in a poor nutritional status. Moving on, man, we went in on that a little bit there. So anyway, the conclusion on this study is a strong link between ultra-processed food consumption. So the more ultra-processed foods that people consume, the more likely that they'll be depressed. Hilarious note, though, obviously we talked about there, like eat a variety of fruits and vegetables, avoid red meat and junk foods. And it's funny because they're like,
we're not saying avoid red meat.
yeah, we're not saying that, but it's funny that they classify, you know, they say red meat's bad, but avoid ultra-processed fruits. But what they classify as red meat includes ultra-processed foods. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, y'all didn't catch that?
Yeah.
You guys didn't catch that little blunder you did there?
So I think that, yes, we talked about older people, but this affects people of all ages.
Yeah, definitely.
And
we went down a rabbit hole with the older people. But yes, this human.
Yeah.
Human nature.
And it's so important that if you have a child who has, because I think this is way more common than when you and I were kids, like depression and anxiety growing up. We didn't have a lot of kids who were depressed or anxious.
No, it's, and you could say that they're
Well,
better.
I would say I was depressed and anxious growing up, but I was a functional depressed and anxious kid.
I feel like we've gone, it's been, you know, we never land in reasonableness. We always go to the complete other side as humans. When we were growing up, you know, it's like depression. What's that? And if you feel a little down, man, just have a little water, you know, rub a little dirt in it, keep going. Now that there's something to be said about that because it kind of worked. But now we went to the everything, you know, acknowledge mental health and everything's mental health and all this stuff. And then now we're kind of like, you know, there's some coddling going on. There might be some overdiagnosing going on. There's this, you know, willingness and rapidness to immediately, boom, hit somebody with medications because they had a bad day, you know. So we went into the other side where now it's too much and everything's depression and anxiety. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then you have these rising rates of depression and anxiety. Like, what are we doing to ourselves?
So I think it has to do with food. So I'm going to say my opinions on this through observations throughout the years with food. If you have a child who's depressed or anxious and you're not optimizing their nutrition, I think that that's a huge
205%. Yes.
Yeah.
If you are dealing with chronic anxiety and depression or the symptoms of anxiety and depression, and you haven't changed the way you're eating, you're missing out.
Yeah. And a lot of people will give me, you know, when I was working with patients, they'll give me pushback. What's the diet going to do with my mood? I'm like, where you take your pill? Do you, you put it in your mouth?
Oh, and it goes through your digestive tract?
And it goes through, interesting how that works.
Yep. And as we started the podcast, where is serotonin produced?
The gut.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So feeding your gut, keeping your microbiome nice and healthy and thriving, improving your microbiome, which you will only do.
I want to make one other point. I'm sorry.
food.
I know you're trying to wrap this up, and I was the one who's like, we need to be careful with time today, so I do apologize. But back to what Nick said about social media and people's perceived reality of what's going on, because I was thinking about this also this morning, because I read the book, Everything is Tuberculosis. They talk about a child growing up in Sierra Leone, and he is the happiest kid. He has a great group of friends. He loves spending time with friends, which he really appreciates, because when he had TB, he had to be isolated, which was very impactful to his mental health. He has a great relationship with his mother. They have enough money for food. They're not eating ultra-processed food in Sierra Leone. I guarantee you they're not. And he has purpose, right? So all these things. He's not on social media seeing how somebody has a Lambo and a, you know, huge house. And so he doesn't, his reality, he's living in it, and he is so happy, right? You would argue he has less than a lot of the people in America do. He doesn't have, like, I think he does have running water, but access to clean water, access to readily available healthcare, all these things that we have access to, yet we have more rates of depression because we sit on our phones and we see people with more than us who have a curated lifestyle that's probably not true, but then we think, well, we're not as good. which then feeds into some depression. So I think that is happening as well. The perceived reality, when it's just look at what you have, focus on how fortunate we are. That's something that you and I do every night is we realize, like, I'm so thankful I have running water. I'm so thankful I have a secure place to live. I don't have to worry about somebody breaking into my house. I have a comfortable bed. I have temperature controlled house. I have easy access to food and I have transportation. I don't have to rely on a bus schedule. How amazing is that? But how many people take that stuff for granted? And what is that doing to your mental health?
Yeah. So, and then, diet is also more than you're putting in your mouth. It's what you're consuming with your eyes and your ears as well. Before I go to what I wanted to say, what are you scrolling through on social media if you're following a bunch of pages that just freaking make you depressed, a bunch of political stuff that just pisses you off, and, other people that make you feel like what you have isn't anything? You might want to get rid of that. What are you listening to? Are you listening to some freaking depressed ass music that's just putting bullshit vibes in your life? Like, what are we talking about? Yeah, it's, everybody likes a little metal. We all like a little hip hop and all that stuff. But if you're just bombarding yourself with music that's just like a down vibe, just talking about all sorts of negative stuff all the time, that's not going to make you feel any better, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need a little pop in your life. I'm talking like not pop, just listen to pop music, because that stuff's kind of garbage too. I'm talking about listening to stuff that brings you up. You get some uplifting. Are your friends all blah, 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 blah? That stuff is going to bring you down too. So you're not moving your body. Come on now, Chuck. Like get the feel good hormones going. But really, what it comes down to is the eating, the microbiome. You're producing serotonin, like you got to feed it so that it makes you feel good, right? Definitive connection between ultra food consumption and symptoms of depression. The other thing that I'll tell you, what's a big microbiome killer that most people partake in?
Fragrances? Plastic?
No, not even that fancy.
Pop?
Alcohol.
Oh.
Alcohol. If
Yes.
you are experiencing symptoms of anxiety and depression and you don't put down the alcohol, at least I'm not telling you that you'll never be able to drink. I'm just saying, put it down for a while. Don't touch it for a while and see what that does for you. Okay?
Yeah.
Give yourself 30 days. Give yourself 60 days alcohol-free. Watch what happens.
Yeah. And I think a study came out earlier this year, because prior to that, it was like, have 1 glass of wine a day or 2 glasses of wine a week and these benefits. And now they're showing there's actually no amount of alcohol that's beneficial, especially to your nervous system. And if you're dealing with depression, anxiety, and you have a history of any sort of trauma, adverse event, brain injury, you're a veteran and experience combat trauma from that, alcohol is doing nothing for your nervous system. And your nervous system is at a deficit due to that trauma. So you need to rebuild that. Alcohol is only going to take that away.
Yeah, now you reminded me. I wanted to get to that. CTE, so concussions and stuff like that. So this doesn't just apply to veterans, football players, rugby players,
Soccer players.
And you fell off a skateboard and hit your head. Wrestling, MMA, you fell off
Baseball.
a skate. Yeah, whatever. You got hit in the head, you got a concussion. But veteran community, which is what I know, more than likely if you've jumped out of planes. Hello. I didn't jump out of planes that much, but I had some rough landings where I distinctly remember like just bonking my head hard on the floor when I landed. Maybe I got a concussion. I don't know. Back then it was drink water, take a knee, pull security, keep going. So I couldn't tell you if I had a concussion. I know when I was a kid, I fell playing basketball and I hit my head hard to the point where I had shocks all over my body and, on a cement basketball court. And that was more than likely a concussion. You've played football, whatever. What I'm trying to get at is if CTE can lead to depression, right?
Yes.
It more than likely actually does, because your brain is literally rattled and thrown off. Veterans, if you're experiencing depression, which is very common, anxiety, super common in veterans, you have these type A dudes that are doing these crazy things, but they're depressed.
And the depression and anxiety may not present as I'm sad, I'm overthinking. It may present as irritabilityness, anger, restlessness.
9 out of 10, that's what you're going to see. and then you're doing the military thing, which is, you're partying, you're drinking a lot, you're not helping yourself, bro. You're making it worse. So if you have a CTE, that's another one, and you're depressed, more than likely, that's the connection because of it, and you're not cleaning your food up, and you're not completely eliminating alcohol, at least for a period of time while you heal, you're screwing yourself over, okay? And that, in the veteran community, I'm super passionate about that because you see it a lot, and these are the dudes that end up offing themselves eventually, and there's alcohol is involved 9 out of 10 times in it. 10 out of 10. I've 10 out of 10. You see what I'm saying? So the takeaway here, guys, you got to take care of your gut. That means eat real food, people. Please eat real food. Second of all, you're experiencing these symptoms, leave the alcohol alone. Let it go. Let it go. You don't need it to be happy, okay? At least for a period of time, eliminate the use of alcohol. I dare you, and watch what happens. Yeah. That's my closing statement. Anything you want to say?
No, I agree. Go to a farmer's market like we plan on doing after this episode.
Yes. Get you some real food.
Yeah.
Put that in your life. Your body's going to be like, yay.
Put attention on who you surround yourself with. Who do you give your time to? Are they giving you something back? And sleep, manage stress.
Get a hobby.
Yeah.
Get a freaking hobby. Yeah. Stop it with my hobby is scrolling on Instagram.
And this is really what I love helping people with in Achieve the Lifestyle, because as I mentioned, I chose to be on Prozac for a short amount of time. I did have a lot of adverse events as a child, so I understand coming from a rocky place, and I love helping people because you can be happy. You can have days where you don't feel like the whole world is on your shoulders because that's how it was as a child. And I love helping people achieve that. And medication could help, but it's also through improving your diet, improving your physical activity, choosing movement that builds you up, getting good quality sleep, having good connections with people around you, finding your tribe, and sleep, activity, stress management.
Getting your butt outdoors.
Yep. Exposing yourself to the outdoors. Put your feet on some ground, grass, sand, in some water, whatever you want to do.
Yeah. Go look at some trees and give them a hug. Real talk. It works, guys. Okay. Anything else you want to say?
No.
Well, that's an episode, guys. We're going to be out of here. Remember, stay pharma-free. Thanks for listening to the PharmaPhobic podcast. If you found this conversation interesting, which I know you did, make sure to follow us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And also make sure to check us out on Instagram at Achieve the Lifestyle. And if you're interested in pursuing a stronger, healthier, more capable version of yourself, check out our website at achievethelifestyle.com.
The PharmaPhobic podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. The views expressed are those of the hosts and guests and do not constitute medical, legal, or professional advice. Always consult a qualified healthcare provider before making any medical or wellness decisions. While we discuss pharmaceutical, holistic, and alternative health topics, our content is not a substitute for professional medical guidance.